For as long as I could remember, my family was everything to me. My parents, Ed and Margaret, had always been the foundation of our lives. They were the kind of people who would drop everything to help family in need. They taught us that loyalty, love, and selflessness were the most important virtues. My brother Mark and I grew up with that same belief. We were close, always looking out for each other, though our differences in temperament often led to some friction. Mark was the charming, outgoing one, everything seemed to come easily for him. He excelled in academics, was the life of the party, and always knew the right thing to say. I was quieter, more introspective, but equally devoted to our family. While Mark was always in the spotlight, I found comfort in the background, supporting everyone and doing what was needed. Our parents always had high expectations, but I never minded. I loved them deeply and would do anything for them. It wasn't until I became a parent myself that I realized how fragile life could be. My son, Liam, was born with a serious medical condition that required constant attention. I had never prepared myself for the toll it would take on me, on us. We were struggling with mounting medical bills, and no matter how hard we tried, the situation only seemed to worsen. That's when I turned to my parents for help, knowing they had always been there for us. But that's when everything started to unravel. At first, there were small, confusing signs. Financial discrepancies began to appear, odd transfers to an account under the name of Violet. Violet, the adopted daughter of my parents. She had come into our lives many years ago after my parents had suffered through multiple miscarriages. They were heartbroken and, in a way, it seemed like Violet's arrival healed a part of them. They raised her as one of their own, and for the longest time, I thought nothing of it. But as Liam's health declined and medical bills piled up, I couldn't help but notice that Violet was receiving more financial help than we were. At first, I brushed it off. Surely my parents, out of the love they had for Violet, were simply helping her out in her own time of need. But when I checked Liam's trust fund, my heart sank. Large sums of money had been funneled into Violet's account, disguised under false business expenses. My son, struggling for his life, was being neglected in favor of a woman who wasn't even their biological child. I confronted my parents, expecting them to explain, to reassure me. But instead, they gave me vague excuses, dodging my questions. The more I dug, the more I uncovered, a series of false financial records, hidden payments, and a web of lies designed to protect Violet. And Violet, well, she was playing a role I had never seen coming. Violet had always been the outsider in the family, the one who never quite fit in. She was quiet, reserved, and at times, I had wondered if there was something about her past that she wasn't revealing. I never pried too much, she was family, after all. But as I began to learn more, I realized that she had been living a carefully constructed lie. I remember the first time I saw Violet truly manipulate someone. It was during a family gathering, long before I suspected anything. She spoke to Mark with such an air of distress, telling him about a tragic medical emergency she'd faced that, almost, cost her life. Her story was filled with just enough detail to make it believable, but something about it seemed off. Mark, ever the compassionate one, had taken it upon himself to support her, offering financial assistance when she claimed to be in desperate need. It wasn't long before Violet's stories grew more elaborate, fictitious hardships, fake medical crises, and a whole web of lies that she wove with ease. At first, I dismissed it. Mark had always been the protector, the one who couldn't stand to see anyone in pain, and Violet was no different. But when Liam's condition worsened and the bills piled higher, I could no longer ignore what was happening. Violet's needs were being prioritized over Liam's health. I was furious, but I had no proof, not yet. Then, a breakthrough came. My father's secretary, who had worked for him for years, reached out to me, her voice trembling as she admitted everything. She explained how my father had used his business connections to create fake documents, funneling money into Violet's accounts. The evidence piled up quickly. It wasn't just a few small transfers, it was systematic theft from Liam's trust fund to support Violet's fabricated needs. I couldn't believe it. The people I had trusted most had turned against me. I hired a private investigator, and the truth came tumbling out. Violet's entire identity had been built on lies. Not only had she faked medical emergencies, but she had also concocted a false history of abuse at the hands of her first husband. She had manipulated anyone and everyone she could. And my parents, blindly protecting her, had been helping her do it all along. The final blow came when I learned the shocking truth: Violet wasn't even their biological daughter. She had been adopted after my parents' multiple miscarriages, a secret they had kept from her and everyone else for years. It was the ultimate betrayal. My own parents, who had once promised to love and protect me, had chosen an adopted child over their own flesh and blood. My son's life had been jeopardized so they could protect Violet's lies.